Welcome back to the Digital Accessibility Podcast. If you're looking to learn more about the field of accessibility, how to implement it within your role or your company, or to get advice on where to start or see how others have navigated complex issues that you may find along the way, then you're in the right place. I'm honoured to be able to share these insightful chats with thought leaders, advocates and practitioners of digital accessibility throughout this podcast, and I hope you'll find it a useful resource. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the chat. Today's guest is someone whose creative eye and personal experience is starting to shape a unique perspective on accessibility and design. I'm joined by Matt Roberts, a designer, leader, and accessibility advocate who's made it his mission to champion inclusive design, not just as a best practice, but as the foundation of great user experience. As someone who's colourblind or experiences colour vision deficiency, Matt brings a deeply personal understanding of what inclusive design really means in practice. We're going to explore his journey into accessibility, how he's integrated it into every stage of his career, from hands-on design to leadership, the challenges, pushbacks, and small but powerful design changes that can really make a big impact. So welcome to the podcast, Matt.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Awesome. Right. So we always start off with the journey or your journey into accessibility. So what first drew you into the world of, well, I guess design first and foremost, and then when did accessibility become a focus for you personally and professionally?
Cool. So full caveat, I'm one of those people that found my thing early. I'm one of those people that so, when did you first think about design? So I always wanted to create, like from primary school, that kind of, like we're talking a couple of years ago, should we say? A couple of years ago. I didn't know exactly what kind of design I wanted to get into, but art and design was my kind of thing. And as kind of been reflecting quite a bit recently, I was just trying to think about those kind of early interactions with accessibility and things like that. And it was really weird. And I have to do a bit more digging, but I remember somebody coming in at primary school, must have been year 5 or 6 for me, and someone came in and they were a designer, they created all sorts of stuff, and they brought in a kind of hairstyle, kind of A4 piece of paper that was for visually impaired customers, for hairdressers. And I thought it was really cool, but I didn't really know what to do with that information. So, oh, this is pretty cool. But then he also came in and talked about working on special effects for James Bond. So it was kind of, who this person is, I'm trying to find. But that was a really interesting point of just kind of, oh, that's the earliest, like getting at the earliest bit of accessibility. But as a lot of the design education still is, and hopefully it's evolving, is that kind of accessibility and inclusive design really wasn't mentioned throughout GCSE, A level, and whatever the degree, anything like that. It was much later on that I kind of found this term accessibility, from a professional sense, but from a kind of a personal sense, to go backwards a little bit. So I was born hard of hearing. I got a burst eardrums. I got I told I was colourblind at around 10, 11, 12, that kind of age. And then I had arthritis diagnosis when I was 24, which made me really think, interact with mobile phones and technology in a very new way, and kind of taken so much more for granted before that, and then kind of really struggling to type a phone number onto a phone or whatever it might be. And kind of these two things kind of collided. Kind of, I've always cared about other people and kind of making people feel included in group conversation or whatever it might be. And then I had this personal kind of experience of knowing what it's like to feel a little bit excluded. I never felt like really excluded, but I felt these little moments of exclusion, even kind of being left-handed and trying to play hockey at school, and they're kind of using the hockey sticks. And it's like, I can't I can't play. I can't play because I can't hold it that way. Or playing the
Oh, bless.
guitar. Like my dad plays the guitar. I was like, learn it. I couldn't. Left-handed guitars are expensive, so I forced myself to learn right-handed, and it was kind of those little moments of thinking the adaptation that you can do yourself, and then the design and everything around you. So these little pockets of experiences, I suppose, kind of uh, led to this kind of almost kind of eureka moment, I suppose. Where someone said, "Oh, do you know what you're talking about is called accessibility?" So, no, what's that? So just type it in. Honestly, like just type it in. Follow the hashtags, hashtag accessibility or A11Y, all this kind of stuff, and I'll leave you to it, kind of thing. It's like, now that's my calling. There we go. There we go. And then talking
Amazing.
then about being colorblind and as a designer, that kind of juxtaposition, opposites kind of thing coming together and go, oh, this is mad. So yeah, I suppose that eureka moment fueled with lots of mini experiences over the years kind of led me to get into it. That starting point, and that was about 7, 8 years ago.
Wow. Oh, brilliant. And yeah, I think it is, if you have the right people around you at times, isn't it, to help join the dots and then, or at least just push you in the right direction
Yeah.
or make you aware of something. And when you said about you don't feel that you've ever been like really fully excluded, I think that I've had loads of conversations recently about neurodivergency, currently talking to a few people myself about if I go down the diagnosis route just to see what's
Mhm.
happening in my brain. And I was talking to my mum actually at the weekend, and she said you were always sort of accepted and people gravitated towards you, but you kind of excluded yourself. So actually, it was like a self ableism or a self sort of I don't feel I belong because I identify differently, or I think that things should be different, or you don't know how to approach a situation. So I think that still really affects you. And then when you were talking about guitar, it made me think of Jimi Hendrix because he was left-handed, but he just flipped the guitar upside down
Yeah.
and played upside down. And you just think, okay, well, that's, another example of a inaccessible environment and having to have those eureka moments or that level of genius to sort of navigate it. But that's where accessibility comes in, isn't it? It's where it sort of says, no, shouldn't have to have that struggle and,
Yeah.
make things work.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you notice those, start to notice those little bits, particularly like I was kind of the left-handed thing really got to me for as a kid, and then you notice even like cash points. Who uses cash anyway? Cash machines. The point to enter the card is on the right-hand side, so as a left-handed dominant person,
Yeah.
you're kind of going across the screen. Same with the London Underground, the swipe or the whatever the mechanism is, or the multiple ways of doing it now is always on the right hand side. So it feels really awkward, but it's another sign of just one way of thinking. So the majority of people are right-handed. There's the solution right-handed, but yes, it's loads of little bits like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, who knows? I could have been a hockey star if only school had supplied me with a left-handed stick. Who knows? Who knows?
Oh man, and I think that's something that a lot of people could probably identify with or recognize because I remember it being at primary school and there were left-handed scissors,
Mhm.
you know, safety
Yeah.
scissors, of course, but left-handed, and I thought, why would you? And it doesn't, you wouldn't think about it until you're in that scenario. But like you say, even with like the Oyster or the contactless points or
Hmm.
an ATM or cash point, you think it must feel really unnatural for you.
Hmm.
But it's another example of designing for the majority
Yeah.
and not everyone.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, wow.
Yeah, and
Okay,
I
no,
think
that's
it's
great.
that. You know, I think it's that significance as well. And maybe we'll talk about more of it throughout the conversation. Is that it never felt significant enough to make a point. It's just, that's just the way I I adapt, and so many others
Mm,
do adapt. Not just me. Lots of people just adapt because that's the world around us. That's just how it's been designed. And yeah, just maybe that adaptability is maybe kind of part of why I love problem solving. So how's that? How does that shift, and how does that do that? And also
mm,
know that things can can change. So I talked briefly about my arthritis that hit me for quite a period of time, I couldn't pick up a pen. There's times I couldn't use the shortcuts using Photoshop because I needed two hands or the dexterity. But knowing that over time, this is maybe for another time, the extended cut. But I ended up running across the country over a 2-week period after this arthritis diagnosis. Like, a bit of a kind of, I can do this, like I'm still able, like almost stubborn kind of thing. That's as I can be at times. It's like I didn't want it to define me, and I suppose
Yeah.
that's an interesting thing. So I've got arthritis, but I'm 24, but all the material and marketing material is skewed towards older people. So no, I don't want to be in that box, and I don't want people to put me in that box. So I kind of worked with myself mentally, emotionally, physically, just like I don't want to do that, but I might regret it later on with not taking all the advice of the doctors. But it was a real moment to kind of understand that there are some diagnoses and conditions that kind of very permanent and they can't change. I'm not going to wake up suddenly right-handed, but I know that my arthritis will come and go, and I know that my eyesight will, like most people, will deteriorate with age. Like that is inevitable. So it's these little experiences that kind of just bring into my design work and my kind of influencing and advocacy work.
Yeah, and I know. Sorry, I mean, I could talk to you all day long. You know that, Matt, because I've chewed your ear off more than enough times in the recent past. But something that you've said there as well made me think of something that Craig Abbott said in a really early episode of the podcast, and it was sort of what quality would you look for someone that's working in accessibility? And one of the first things he said was resilience, and that just shows that's bred into you, really. And I think through that experience, through that personal sort of lived experience anyway as well, and being able to identify, problem solve, and being resilient, because you're not going to let it just beat you down. You're not going to just go, oh, I have arthritis, I can't run across the country. I'm left-handed, I can't play hockey. I'm sure you still gave it a good go. And the guitar, all sorts of things, and that shows that level of resilience that's really sort of required to thrive in this sort of industry. But I will bring that on to the second question, where we've spoken before about how being colorblind or color vision deficient has influenced your approach at times to design. So just wondering what it's been like with like the challenges that you've faced, any small sort of tips as well that you might have, or how it's sort of shaped you into being a bit more of a, I don't want, I've written this down, and I don't want to say that you were never thoughtful as a designer, but more thoughtful designer.
More thoughtful. It's all adding. It's all adding. I suppose the biggest. So I suppose it's been a real shift over the last few years. I'm nearly 40 to give it context. So for about 30 odd years, I never really thought of it as something. It was never kind of over laboured and things like that throughout school or anything. And actually, I've really been learning what it is to be colourblind and like the seriousness of it, and where it could impact me, where it doesn't. But what I'm also finding really interesting is, I suppose, the biggest challenge, as even someone who's colourblind, there's so little information out there how common colourblindness is. So a lot of the things I do share is like there's 1 in 12 men are colourblind, and then you think, when you look at that in terms of your team, your kind of organization, the networks you're a part of, the family gatherings, whatever it might be. So 1 in 12 statistically are colourblind, and it's 1 in 200 women. So the challenge, I suppose, there is just shifting that mindset to how common is it, and what is the implications of being colourblind, and kind of working through the challenges of as soon as anybody who's colourblind will relate to this. It's like, you tell someone that you're colourblind. So what colour is that? What colour is that? Well, it's inevitable because it's curious. It's done with a lot of heart and obviously a bit of humour as well. But it's a real kind of opportunity then to say, look, the traffic lights. I can see those traffic lights for my condition, which is red green, so Deuteronomy. I can never pronounce it, but it's the red green variety. So where I kind of do struggle in a kind of a more practical sense is, say, like playing cricket and the cricket ball being red amongst then the green of the grass. Spotting that ball is maybe more difficult than people with normal vision, or kind of 'tis the season, so the Christmas tree being green and kind of the colours within that are used, I can't necessarily see the baubles kind of pop. I hate that word, pop, as much as many other people. So, but it's that kind of education and things like that, and there's obviously micro kind of, I say microaggressions. It's like the school thing. It's like, oh, you colourblind? Are you colourblind? Like, it's those flippant remarks and stuff like that. And kind of working also against a system whereby it's kind of there's a see corrections in red in an email. It's those kind of things. It's just been there. That's where it's been in industry for years and years. So working with various teams and accessibility champions teams and things like that to say, okay, so that's inherent kind of go-to. What's the alternative, and kind of using annotated documents in Word and Google and all that kind of stuff. That helps provide a solution to people who can't see those things. So that's probably the biggest challenge. I think it's, from my experience, it's a fairly new conversation. And one I'm kind of discovering more and more myself to kind of influence people as much as possible to understand it and kind of go, okay, it's less serious than I thought, or it's more serious than I thought. Let's work out what I can genuinely do day to day to support, technically, 1 in 12 men or 1 in 200 women.
Yeah, and it's one of those conditions where I've heard a lot of remarks where someone's introduced themselves and they've, for whatever reason, the conversation's gone on to the fact that they do have colour vision deficiency or they're colourblind, and people go, oh, but you can still see, like belittling it, like it's not serious. And that's a really horrible not part of the industry, because I think there's a lot more empathy within accessibility itself, but that unawareness, ignorance, I may call it, and microaggression, I think that's actually quite aggressive. That's going to have a real impact as well. And there's the conversation of people saying they don't feel they belong because they don't think they're disabled enough, or well, is it serious enough, like you said? And there are some real serious implications, like you say. If people are using just colour to define meaning in anything, it could be a really serious document. You could be going to jail. Not you, Matt, because you're a good boy.
Well,
It's, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's and why should anyone that doesn't have the experience be able to make that remark as well? So
and I think the biggest, again, one of the most kind of universal kind of components, I suppose, to understand colourblindness is forms. There's a form everywhere. On every site, there's a form to fill out. Enter your email here for another newsletter at 10% off, or kind of to fill out something related to your doctors or whatever it might be, or kind of claiming anything through gov.uk or whatever it might be. There are always forms there, and typically green is good, success, pass, red is fail, error, all that kind of stuff. So if you kind of, next time you're filling out a form or whatever, and you see, I'll see error in red, or think about that page. If you couldn't see the color, could you generally find where that mistake is on that page? So the way around that, if you're a designer listening, is looking at, absolutely use conventional things like expected colors. There's no point in then introducing a blue or a pink or whatever. Use those assumed and colors that have been well established, but to add something to it. So it's a green tick next to it, or a red cross. So regardless of color, you could see a cross next to the field that's incorrect, and it's like, okay, there we go. You're not again relying on that color. But yeah, I encourage people to have a look at filling out a form if you can't see the colors, and they're saying correct the field in red, and you've already spent 20 minutes filling out the form, and now you have to find that red. Yeah.
Very frustrating, absolutely. But thank you for that, because that hopefully will come in handy to a lot of people that do listen to this. Love a small tip, and it seems, I mean, obviously I probably wouldn't be able to do that myself because I'm not as technical as you or in the design field, but yeah, having a easy fix to something, I put air quotes up just for anyone that's only listening, is always helpful. Brilliant. So on the more strategic side as well of what you do, I know there's some leadership as well, and awareness building in the various companies you've worked with. But when it comes to sort of accessibility within design, a lot of organizations do treat it still as an afterthought, something that comes in at the testing phase, which we know is extremely expensive compared with if you shift left, as many will understand that term. But how have you managed to sort of build accessibility into specifically your design process from the outset, and has that had much of an impact on your project or the teams that you're working with?
Yeah, so the main bit is, I guess, accessibility and kind of the mainstream is a fairly new term. I think we can all agree it's fairly new into a lot of projects, and that's been around for years and years, and there's some incredibly technical experts out there. It's a fairly new term, so for a lot of project teams it is incredibly new, and kind of it seems like an extra. It's, oh, what is this accessibility thing? Oh no, there's another bit of paperwork, there's another thing to do. But where I found it really useful is to kind of respectfully ditch the term accessibility to prove a point, just to kind of say, kind of put a prototype together and say, just for this scenario, and no, this is kind of very light touch, but this kind of can work, is we all know that the Apple mouse is terrible. So when it runs out of battery, you're putting it on its side like a dead mouse, and you can't use it. So that's the scenario we're in. Your mouse has just died, but you've got to fill out this form or navigate to this area of the website. Like you now to use the keyboard to get to that place. Like, super familiar. We've all had that moment. Oh no, my mouse is blah, blah, blah. Put that to the side. Now navigate to this section and use the keyboard. Like, it's a very ordinary thing to do. It's nothing too technical. It's just use what tool you now have in front of you. And then the penny can drop saying, well, I can't get to that thing. So, well, exactly, that's part of accessibility. Like, I'll put accessibility almost as the end point, but the first point is like, just try and access this thing. Just do this very simple thing of going from this homepage to the About Us page because you want to find out about this organization, whatever. But don't use your mouse because your mouse has died. It's charging there. It'll be half hour, an hour. So you've got to work in this way. So yeah, that's the bit, and I do that on a few examples where it's just shifting that moment to go, I can't do that thing. Or yeah, another example, you've had an accident, you've broken your arm, touch wood. You don't break your arm on a regular basis, but you're only then using one arm to do something. Maybe use your phone, use a tablet or whatever. But again, another fairly straightforward example scenario to address the point of, oh, this is really difficult or this is really easy. It's like, well, that's proved my point. That's why we stripped down this huge document into such a more straightforward thing, because you can do that kind of one-handed, left hand, whether you're dominant or right hand, whether you're not as dominant or the other way around, you can still do that thing. And that kind of builds up that kind of understanding, empathy, and kind of, oh, okay, it's part of the process, not this extra thing. Because I felt the frustration of not being able to do whatever.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the situational, temporary, permanent Microsoft design guidelines or design principles where if you have that in your mind when you're designing for a product, service, whatever it might be, it makes things much more familiar. I think that's the problem. I think there's a lot of people that are in design development or any kind of technical role creating products, even content creators. Everyone's a content creator these days. I mean, look at me. I'm actually just a recruiter. um, but when it comes to stuff you're putting out there, you might not have that consideration because you haven't in the past or whatever it might be. You've never come across it. Someone's never complained yet. And yeah, I guess with regulation changes and the EAA and now enforce and enforceable, seeing a lot more popping up about it every day, which is good. It's going to be hopefully more commonplace that these conversations are having, and you have to be ready. So yeah, no, but I think they're great tips because it is, if you make it that bit more familiar for anyone to go, I can empathize or I can sort of have that understanding of, well, that'd be a real pain if I couldn't do that. So
yeah, and I think to your point about the EAA coming in, it came in on my birthday. Coincidence? Who knows? Who knows?
well,
But I had no role to play in it, but I will always remember that they came in. But it's to know that, particularly if you're very new to accessibility or you've just kind of heard on the cusp of a conference or whatever, is not to be even more afraid of accessibility. Think it's even bigger and it's brasher. It's like, yeah, it is absolutely super important. That's why there's particular specialist agencies out there to support you navigate through the compliance aspect of it. But it's also to remind yourself that it's, you have a role and responsibility within accessibility and making somebody feel included in a Teams meeting. Like setting up and presenting through PowerPoint will allow that person to control kind of the pace of the slides, so you can go back and kind of translate the slides and things like that. It's like, oh, cool, like that helps. That's not like a other person. I was like, that's an agency coming in. That's a me just making sure that when I present through Teams, Microsoft, put PowerPoint, bam, and there you go. You know, there's that kind of quite simple task you can do to ensure even just that extra person can contribute to a conversation. So
definitely. I think those small incremental changes that you can make to the way you do things, presentations, like you say, or just how you sort of perform your job. I think sometimes people don't realize actually the gravity of that scenario or the level of impact they can have. And sometimes they feel, well, it's an extra step. I'm not going to impact anyone. It might be one person. One person's enough. Let's just say that. If you're impacting one person, you could either be ruining someone's day or making it. So why wouldn't you want to make someone's day?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's so many simple ones out there
Yeah,
like that, presenting through Teams and presenting through PowerPoint. Yeah, so it's a no-brainer. Yeah, no-brainer.
definitely. Perfect. So moving into sort of leadership and that strategy side, we have sort of touched on it already, but in that transition from hands-on design into that kind of leadership position for yourself, it's often, I guess, where accessibility either really takes a hold or it can get sort of lost in the ether if you're no longer the hands-on person doing the thing. But how have you helped teams or clients or companies see accessibility as that creative advantage rather than an initial constraint? I guess we've kind of already mentioned that, but
Yeah, I suppose there's a couple of bits there. One is about keeping the momentum of the conversation of accessibility. It can kind of fizzle out if you're the only one kind of fueling that fire. It's just, oh, I can only do so much as a little match. But if there's enough of you and there's a champions network and things like that, it was just even a small group of you kind of regularly talking about accessibility. That's real opportunity to kind of make and ensure that momentum and consistency is still there to kind of get in front of the right people and kind of get them talk to them in the right way about all these different opportunities. I suppose the creative advantage as a designer, I love a problem. I think every designer loves a problem to solve, and maybe not problem's not the right word. the constraint, the parameters. Like, what can I do? Yeah, probably not the right word. The constraint of it. Just so, it needs to be 12. Oh, it's always 6 point, and because on packaging, it's always 6 points. No, you're like, in some scenarios, like the 12 points the minimum. Let's use that as leverage, and let's see how creative we can be with that, and kind of not build on a design like it's almost like start a new kind of design thinking and a new design system rather than kind of butchering kind of something that was old and kind of maybe less informed. We've got this new research about the size and the tactile nature of packaging or whatever it might be, is kind of use that and kind of use that to really stand out and kind of make a mark on a shelf or on somebody's screen. Oh wow, they've really thought about it and they've used it, and they've not kind of tried to hide it away and put it somewhere else and do or kind of cover it up. So it's all available on the QR code, like just bunged it all on there. They've kind of really understood kind of whether it's the size of the font or the colors, and so they're a red green organization. How do we do that? Oh my god, Matt's coming in talking about colorblindness and we've got to rebrand. No, there's so many opportunities, and I love that as a design challenge and a kind of opportunity to ask, okay, let's understand that further, let's go deeper. Like, why does it need to be that size or those colors? And kind of work out what the potential issues are. And again, by talking to people who are colorblind and neurodiverse, depending on the scenario, like talk to them, understand what the frustrations are. Same around dyslexia and things like that. Just understand that a little bit more, so you're not building a solution based on your assumptions. Like, oh, it's this, it's that. So have you really spoken to it? Like, have you felt their frustration? Have you felt actually that where people think this is a dyslexic friendly font, it doesn't really do anything more or less than existing this font and this font. So like, be honest, be authentic, be kind of be open to listening and kind of talking to people, and not kind of sitting siloed at home and kind of, I need to think about all these variants. Like, no, use it as an opportunity to kind of really solve another problem. And you're not going to get it right straight away. No, very few people do, but it's an evolution. It's kind of building on it and stuff. So
I guess it's having that. I mean, a lot of designers will have that level of curiosity as well. I think a lot of people might. It depends, I suppose, doesn't it, on the role that you've got. But I think a lot of people will have that natural curiosity and ask that question and go a bit further and go, well, who's it going to impact, or how are they using X, Y, and Z? But another part, I suppose, like you said, keeping it as part of the conversation, you have maybe a bit more control over the design briefs and things, because I think if you've got it in there as like something to be considered in the brief, it's like, okay, well, that's another constraint. It's something that has to be considered, rather than just, well, I've got personal experience and I want to make it better for me or people like me. But something else I was going to say there was, I can't remember. That's really bad. That's fine. We'll go on to the next bit.
But just on that point of the briefing, is that if it's not part of the brief, then how are you approaching it? Are you then approaching a brief not making it accessible? Is that the mindset? That's a genuine conversation. That's not kind of a little bit provocative. It's kind of, well, so you're creating something that's not accessible, and by accessible we mean, like, we can't kind of always really mindful of using accessible just like to cover absolutely everything, but kind of let's kind of think about kind of approaching an advertising brief, a mobile app or whatever. Does it need to explicitly kind of say make the most accessible app ever or whatever it might be? It's like, no, if it's commercial and it's public facing, it should adhere to actually some disability acts and etc. As a given. It's not an extra, it's a given. It needs to be compliant, EAA and all that kind of thing coming in. So in a brief, the additional bit is that we know it's targeted for a certain age, has a certain demographic, or a certain kind of yeah, whatever it might be, a certain organization. That okay, then we need additional insights, and actually we've got a really really great opportunity here to talk directly to the audience and do user interviews and prototyping and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd kind of challenge that kind of brief where it hasn't got it in it, that you do it instinctively anyway as part of good design. A good design is kind of understanding your audience and understanding the breadth of that audience as well. So
so we're going to probably carry on for the rest of the day, but another thing on, and it's just popped back into my head what I was going to say, and it's full circle with what you were just mentioning there. I think a big problem in the design space is how subjective good design is. It's what you think is good design and others may not. So you putting accessibility in there, others might go, but that's not good design. That's not in my definition of done. Or but I think I've been racking my brains to try and remember who said this to me. I think it may have been Jamie and Lion, or Charlie Turrell, so BBC days, and they said rather than putting it into a brief or talking about accessibility, they actually rephrased it, who are we willing to exclude? Because then as soon as you phrase it like that, decision makers will prick up and go, well, no one, we can't exclude anyone. Like, well, that's what you're doing by not considering. So really interesting terminology.
It's really helpful exercise that. I've heard Charlie talk about it before, and it's really good. It's really helpful, and it's like I think particularly mentioning BBC here, it's like talking about particular like news round, which is kind of slightly younger audience and slightly older audience, like who we're happy to exclude, willing to exclude at a certain age when it's kind of 10 o'clock news. We're kind of willing to kind of exclude kind of the younger audience here. We don't need to kind of necessarily go into explaining every acronym and kind of the history and kind of simplifying the language to that age appropriate kind of audience. We're happy to exclude if they watch it. Great, why are they up at 10 o'clock at night? But it's just kind of understanding kind of who your audience is, and if by just listing a few audience types out, at least you've acknowledged it. You've acknowledged inclusion and inclusion in the same conversation. So
like purposeful exclusion. It sounds like trying to make a negative a positive, but in that sense, definitely, like you say, if it's not for that person, then you don't really want kids sort of hearing too much graphic sort of stuff about what's going on in the world. Unavoidable, unfortunately, these days, but yes, good point. The other, so practical tips for designers. You've already shared quite a few throughout the chat. So is there anything on your mind at the moment that, if it's a designer that's thinking about this space, accessibility, inclusive design, but they might not have a budget, or they're doing things on their own as a side of desk, are there any sort of small things that you would say will make an impact and sort of start them on that journey?
I guess you mentioned budget. I hate the word budget.
And pop. I was really careful earlier to not say make it pop.
I was going to say it's like budget, impactful, and engaging. I hate them all in different ways. But I honestly, being useful in a kind of a flippant comment is like, don't waste energy kind of thinking about budget, as particularly starting up. It's a budget thing. It's hard to control. And just think about some simple things that you can do. And I think for me, when I've done occasional freelance work I've done lots of freelance work over the years, is kind of talking to people that are genuinely around you, and there's a lot of statistics out there of how common dyslexia is, and different neurodiversity and age. Like I'd highly recommend. Like there was a whole stint did some freelance work from the local library, and sitting in there whilst overhearing kind of the IT kind of tuition, kind of one-to-one tuition, the amount of invaluable insight I got from putting myself somewhere else that wasn't typically my comfort zone. Like, I know what people like that are generally in my circle, but putting yourself somewhere else in kind of a library setting, you kind of come up with you hear this insight that there was a scenario where an older lady was having some tuition, and she was just simply trying to sort out online shopping out, like Sainsbury's, Tesco's, whatever it was. And she says, I'm always at this blocker, like when I go on, and it's always asking me for an email. I haven't got an email. I've got a Gmail. How do I get an email? And it was genuinely like that. Those little bit, you're not going to hear that. Kind of, you're not going to necessarily read articles or kind of see it in a book or whatever it might be, and around other friends. But actually sitting there and hearing that, as a designer, I'm thinking, okay, what do I need to do? What could I do? And it's just kind of that demographic, and it's not an overgeneralization. It was just that could happen at any age. Is just the email Gmail kind of thing. They're so close together. It's like, is there an F mail? I don't know. Is that EFG? Like what's the difference here? And that kind of those experiences really feed into kind of thinking about design in a kind of a new way, or not a new way, an evolved way, because you're kind of thinking about different scenarios, like sit at a bus stop and just listen, or go to a cafe and not put your headphones on for a bit, like give yourself a break, like just listen and see where the frustrations are, or see how people interact at the shops, and they're trying to kind of read labels and kind of do that and see how people react to certain adverts, or getting into a football stadium, whatever. You kind of start to notice these little experiences, and then you think, as a designer or somebody who's involved in projects, is going, how would you solve it? But aren't I grateful that I've witnessed that, and I've heard the frustration, and I've heard when it works well? And that's another point, is just to also recognize what does work well and really celebrate that. It's like, oh, do you know what? It was really, I mean, I went to the cinema the other day, and it was just really straightforward. I didn't have to think about getting in. I could find my seat really straightforward, like bam, 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 and I could enjoy that, which is a very simple thing, or booking a doctor's appointment or whatever it might be. So it's also about those, and yeah, just being observant, I guess. Don't kind of overcomplicate it. Just sit and listen. Just observe.
It's those real world experiences, I suppose. But I think the problem, not problem, I'm not adding to your list of problems, but I think the problem I see with that is that so much of our lives is lived in our own little bubble. A lot of it is online now. A lot of it, people are walking down the road with AirPods in on their phone. So they're not going to be, but that's a great bit of advice. It's actually almost like the Gen Z quote, like "Go touch grass." I think it's
yeah, pretty much.
It's quite nice. New audience for us, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I think the absolutely having that real world experience, hearing what other people are going through, and giving a damn, I think, as well. And yeah, perfect. Okay, no, that's really good advice. I'll keep telling people that's what they need to do. Matt told me you need to just go outside and touch grass.
Touch grass. Go to the library. Just get away from the algorithm for just half an hour. And yeah, that maybe we'll touch on that in a minute. But just get outside of your own algorithm, which is great to a certain extent if you're really interested in whatever films and sport and whatever. But to allow yourself, or kind of force yourself to go into that alternate setting, and it doesn't have to be extreme, just go into a shop that you've always walked past, like just go and see and listen to what their customers are interested in, whatever it might be. And open up. And as a designer, you're typically going to work on quite a range of industry as well, so having that breadth of insight is always going to be a real benefit.
Definitely. Perfect. And there we go. So as the design world evolves, tools like Figma, AI assisted design now coming in, there's a lot of worry around that as well, I think, in terms of who's going to have a job other than the robots, new interface technologies and things. But let's try and make it, I guess, positive if possible. But what's exciting you about the future of inclusive design? Like, where could it go, or Where's it going to have a really big impact, do you think?
I think, going on the positive. Go positive, go
Yes.
positive. It is a couple of things. Again, trying to go on the positive side, is Meta
You don't have
glasses.
to.
It's really different. I'm so on the fence. I've got so many splinters sitting on the fence with this, but it's so nuanced and there's so many different scenarios to. It's almost like when someone goes, "Oh, what do you think of the internet?" What do you mean the internet? Like this, it's so broad, and I'm at an age where I just didn't feel that kind of introduction of the internet as. But our AI is that equivalent. It's like, what do you
True.
think to it? Like, it's big, it's broad, it's complex, it's nuanced, it's all this kind of thing. But going on some positive examples I've seen of AI inclusion. Let's go there. Is I'm going to chat with Hector Minto. He's one to follow on LinkedIn if you've not already come across him. And we were talking about dementia and the Meta glasses. So other brands are available, but it was kind of in the scenario where a patient is wearing these glasses, and as a carer or somebody going in to check up on an elderly relative or somebody you generally care for, is like, has this person been in to see you today? Insert name. It's like, no. It's like, and then say, hey Meta, have you has that person come in? It's like, yes, they have, or no, they haven't. And it's a real kind of interesting opportunity to kind of be the supportive memory, and is trying to stay away from all the Black Mirror stuff, because we haven't got time to go in my full depth analysis of Meta glasses and the data breaches and stuff. But I thought that was really, as a conversation starter, kind of actually the opportunity there in terms of helping memory and helping that maybe palliative care or whatever it might be. It's a really helpful insight. And I think there's other examples of where there's, within any organization, there's always a document to read. It's typically quite complex and long, and actually having AI overview summaries can be really helpful. It won't obviously need to depend on what model you're using, but it's a really good overview of just saying, okay, this is the general tone and this is kind of what's this thing's about. And I think that's really going to help more and more people be part of conversation, and it's not then reliant on the speed in which they read and kind of the language, and whether it's first like native language, second language, third, or whatever it might be. It's kind of a really kind of opportunity to kind of bring some of that maybe those simple opportunities into a space where they can contribute to a conversation. And like the live translation of the language is awesome. But yeah, I mean, the data breach thing is where we go into Black Mirror and horrible scenarios, but it's really beautiful. And I think this is where I really like it. It's just beautiful moments of helping an individual be included in something and not feel left outside. And I think that's probably where my take is for the positive angle.
I love that, because there are going to be an awful lot of positives on the application of AI. I think that we just need to not get too carried away and use it for everything. Like a lot of people saying no code solutions or getting AI to develop everything without a consideration of human experience, So it's but some people have described AI as a visually impaired user at times, because technically it is a program. Does it have the human experience of sight, so it's interesting. What I would say on that, doing overviews of documents, we have to, obviously, it's recruitment, procurement teams we're talking to all the time, and reading long documents. My boss Jane is actually doing a speed reading course at the moment to try and quicken up, but AI has come in really handy, like you say, and it to de-jargonize, I don't think that's a real word, but I'm making it one, or explain a document back to you at a level that you might understand it, but it's getting your prompt accurate. You have to sort of say, only use the information in this document, do not make assumptions or give sources from the internet. So it's
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
very useful.
And I think it's the knowing that it's it's that balance of AI is still a robot, and if I think you kind of still in your mind's like as human as it might sound, it's
Yeah.
still kind of hasn't. I had a quote from a. I'm going to butcher this now, but as a leading creative from an agency, it's like AI's never had their heart broken or fallen in love or been bullied or been welcomed or been excluded. So
Mm,
in terms of understanding how um, kind of humanity works and behavior and kind of psychology and kind of the development and kind of learning from its mistakes and going somewhere, I don't think it will ever reach that because it is so nuanced. And I
mm,
just love that idea of like AI's never fallen in love or broken up and then kind of fallen in love again.
yeah.
It's just such a nice thing. But from like systematic process, summarize this, blah blah blah. Yes, like I can see it working and automating that kind of thing. But when it comes into kind of replicating human behavior or an emotion, it you feel that kind of slight difference. And it's another example where it's the difference sometimes between Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Like there's a difference, but sometimes you just don't know, but you just don't trust it. Like whichever way it goes. But yeah, AI will never kind of replace that humanity aspect. Um,
I think I know a few people that would argue with you about the difference between Pepsi and Coca-Cola, or even actually original versus Diet Coke, because I can't taste the difference. I think
oh,
it's all
well,
tastes the same.
we shall
Oh,
extend this podcast and we shall have a good solid debate about that. Coca-Cola, Coke Zero, Diet Coke. Yeah, there's a
all the same,
yeah.
different branding. I'm
Ah!
joking. Amazing. Right, so that brings me to final thoughts, Matt. So thank you so much for spending some time with me. I know that you've got a lot going on yourself as well, so really appreciate it. But before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to leave with listeners? Is there a message of your own or a mindset that you'd like more designers to have when they come or take forward when it comes to accessibility?
The biggest thing for me, and I suppose it's going right back to the first question, is like that kind of eureka moment of kind of finding a word, finding a book, finding a person. And I really encourage people just to start, like honestly, just I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, welcome,
Well, there you
hello.
go. Yeah.
That's a good start. You've had the words digital and accessibility into somewhere, so that's good. And I encourage then those people to again like go on to all the social media networks and stuff like that, and or kind of all your bookstores and things like that, just typing in all those kind of keywords: accessibility, inclusion, exclusion, uh, ableism, disability, and all these kind of these words, and see what comes up and find your way into it. Not all of it has to be kind of big and complicated, and you have to read everything to have an opinion and have an approach. There is some really simple ways of getting into it, and maybe that is just simply following somebody who is an accessibility person or an agency that does this stuff on a daily
Yeah.
basis and kind of posting kind of this is really good, we're at this event, it's like go to that event. So it's a kind of just I guess just start and be the other side of kind of be willing to evolve and be challenged and be wrong sometimes, but
Yeah.
just make sure you put something out there and it's yeah, just putting something out there that can really kind of make sure that nobody kind of or fewer people get left out,
Yeah.
left excluded. It's
Yeah.
much punchier if that was a much more concise sentence, but you get the point.
Well, we'll get AI to make it shorter
We'll
for
get
you. There you
AI,
go.
yeah. Just get rid of all the ers and ums, and we'll cut this podcast down to about 13 minutes.
No, that
But
wouldn't be
yeah,
human though, would
it's
it, Matt?
exactly, and that's the beauty, right? We are people.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that, and absolutely, it's such a welcoming community, as you hopefully have found as well. There's so much sharing, knowledge sharing,
Mhm.
and it's just really nice to feel that you're no longer one person trying to do it all. There are a lot of people out there still currently trying to make the world more inclusive in all aspects of it as well. So no, but really appreciate your time as always, Matt. It's always a pleasure. I'm sure we could have carried on for another good couple of hours, and maybe we will once we stop recording. But thank you so much, and yeah, I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you very much. Cheers.